Thank you for joining me here today. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the traditional territory of the signatories of Treaty 6 and acknowledge the Métis people of Alberta who share a deep connection and history to this land. On April 1st, the provincial fuel tax will no longer apply to gasoline sales. The provincial government claims this will lead to lower prices at the pump for Albertans and while the cost of everything continues to increase under the UCP. Income taxes, property taxes, tuition, park fees, and car insurance have all gone up due to policy choices made by this UCP government. Their tax on inflation through bracket creep will cost Albertans $1 billion over the course of their fiscal plan. At the same time, the UCP also de-indexed AISH and seniors benefit, costing Albertans on fixed incomes hundreds of dollars. On top of this, utility bills have increased dramatically since the UCP removed the cap on electricity. The UCP claimed to be addressing these costs, but their natural gas rebate turned out to be a fake. It doesn't take effect until next year, and it only applies if natural gas prices increase dramatically. Their electricity rebate only amounts to $50 a month, despite power bills increasing by hundreds of dollars. Even UCP members described this as paltry. We have offered multiple solutions to fix this and provide real relief for Albertans, but the UCP have refused at every step of the way. We even drafted legislation to prevent Albertans from being disconnected from their utilities while they struggle to pay their bills. The UCP wouldn't even look at it. When it comes to the provincial fuel tax, there's cause for skepticism about whether or not Albertans will see that money back in their pockets. When asked if there was any guarantee that the full 13 cents of the fuel tax rebate will make it to Albertans, the finance minister said no. His only answer was that companies will likely do it on their own. The UCP tried the same thing with car insurance. The finance minister said rates would go down due to Alberta's competitive environment, but that hasn't been the case. And now they're trying the same thing with the fuel tax, despite some economists suggesting that it's unlikely that the 13 cents per litre will be passed on to Albertans. The UCP is telling Albertans to trust them, to trust the companies to make decisions that are against their own financial interests. We know this government can't be trusted to help Albertans with rising costs. So today, we're calling for an independent third-party audit to review whether or not the fuel tax rebate is being passed along to Albertans. An audit will provide accountability and transparency around the fuel tax rebate, so Albertans will know whether or not they're getting the full rebate or just an April Fool's Day joke, and another fake program from this UCP. Thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. We'll now go to the phones. Just a reminder for those joining us on the phone to use *9, and for those joining us on Zoom to use the raise hand function to get yourself into the question queue. Our first question comes from Catherine Grigowski at Alberta Today. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, I'm wondering what sort of recourse the government may have if this independent third-party audit finds there is, in fact, that gas stations are hanging on to this. What can they do about it?
That's an interesting question. I think there's probably a number of options available to the government through policy, through legislation, through any number of means. But I think the first thing would be to take the step to ensure that that rebate is getting through. And I actually think they often say sunlight is the best disinfectant. I think that knowing that this audit is coming might itself alter behavior, so they may ultimately not need to do anything at all.
Do you have a follow-up, Catherine?
Yeah, so I guess in order to prove that, would you be looking for that, like checking the price at the pumps tomorrow and then the day after tomorrow, making sure it drops 13 cents? Or how would you prove that that rebate's getting passed along to consumers?
Well, that's why we're looking for the independent third-party audit to go through and actually determine whether that money has flowed through. There are sort of forensic accounting methods by which one could probably figure out, even looking back after the fact, whether that's happened. The challenge, I think, is that we don't know what we'll see on April 1st. Maybe we'll see them drop by 13 cents and maybe they'll go up the next day. There's no real way for Albertans to be assured that that money is making it through, especially in light of the fact that prices sort of fluctuate based on a number of factors. So our hope is that by asking for this audit, we can bring some transparency so that Albertans can have that certainty.
Anything further, Catherine?
Yeah, so the Competition Bureau of Canada has looked into gas price fixing allegations before. I'm wondering, since this is a provincial policy, does that add a wrinkle, or would the Competition Bureau of Canada be able to look into that?
Well, I think that if they have jurisdiction to look into it, they will continue to have jurisdiction to look into it. I believe that the provincial government could also take that jurisdiction to look into it and take the necessary steps.
All right, our next question comes from Josh Aldrich of the Calgary Herald. Go ahead, Josh, your line is open.
All right, thank you for taking my question. Just look, does the province have any mechanisms to force gas stations to actually abide by it? Or my understanding is there are no real levers that they can pull to force gas stations to lower the price or fix their price. You can go across town and find 3 different prices for gas in town. Is it just kind of that social pressure that you're hoping impacts the price of gas, that these gas stations actually do drop their prices by 13 cents on Friday?
So the provincial government is spending an enormous amount of taxpayer money on this. We obviously think it's the right thing to do. We, in fact, have suggested more programs to help Albertans than just this one. But I think the provincial government has a right to determine whether that money has, in fact, been used to lower prices for Albertans. And so we're asking them to do an audit to ensure that that is the case. Once the results of that audit comes back, I think it would be sort of a determination of next steps, how to go forward. But I think Albertans, when we are spending tax dollars, I think Albertans deserve to know that those tax dollars are going to provide real relief for families, as that was the objective of the program.
You mentioned a little earlier that there are potential mechanisms that could be looked at going forward. What kind of mechanisms are available for the provincial government to look at, depending on what comes back from an audit, to make sure that prices have been lowered?
Well, again, I don't want to sort of pen them in, because I think they have like a lot of different kind of policy options available to them. But an audit, sort of coming back and indicating that this rebate didn't go on, at that point, I think, depending on precisely what the findings were of the audit, you could move forward with different mechanisms, whether sort of through the tax code, whether legislative, whether policy-based. But I think the point right now is to give Albertans the information, to give the provincial government the information, to know that the things that they're doing are having the impact that they're meant to. There are a lot of people struggling out there right now. The government hasn't taken a lot of actions. This is one of them. And so I think Albertans deserve to know that it's actually having an impact on the bottom line of Alberta families, and that it isn't just going to pad the bottom lines of already profitable corporations.
Anything further, Josh?
I honestly only got about every 12th word of that answer. Something was breaking up along the way. Could I get this sent to me, the audio from this sent to me?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, we'll do one last pass for questions on the phones. Just a reminder for those on Zoom to use the raise hand function, and for those on the phones to use *9. And with no further questions, we'll wrap today. Thanks, folks.
Tens of thousands of Albertans have already provided their idea for how we can build Alberta's future. You can too by going to albertasfuture.ca.